Watching the starting point guard right down there at the bottom, Jeff Doughton, who just has one of the highest IQs I've seen in a basketball player. And folks, wait until you see freshman Fats Russell, 5'10", electric basketball player.
Here is Jeff Doughton, so composed, beyond his years, steady on the ball. And there's the man, Terrell. Underway at the Ryan Center, Stan Robinson, the Indiana transfer, in the starting five for Dan Hurley. They have been steady at the top. E.C. Matthews into the five is the big story. Robinson for three, no good, and Simmons with the rebound.
And that's where Florida Gulf Coast wants the three-point shot to come from. Let Robinson beat you from behind the arc. The other guys are good rhythm shooters.
Meantime, Mark, Florida Gulf Coast using its 10th combination of starting five.
They'll go 9, 10, 11 men deep. It really doesn't matter, Will. They're all going to play in the first 8 minutes.
If there's an area where Gulf Coast has an advantage, it's in the paint. They go there early, trying to feed Rayshon Scott. He was something of a surprise in the starting five. There is the man at the helm, and what a big breakthrough a year ago for Rhodey.
Well, coming from a great basketball family, Dan Hurley starts with work ethic, passion, and defense. Right here, man-to-man for the URI Rams.
That will come through the screen all night, his intensity. And Travius Simmons has his shot altered by Barry, and the Rams looking to push. There is E.C. Matthews, Terrell, three, too strong, and Goodwin with the board.
Two good first open looks for URI. That, on top of playing great defense and forcing turnovers, which is what the Rams do, they've got to knock down those open threes.
Zach Johnson with a miss. He and Goodwin, the dynamic duo. Terrell leads the charge for Rhode Island.
Unlike Florida Gulf Coast, Will, this is a guard-oriented team. Berry will set high ball screens. He's good with the ball. He can convert in the paint, but it's an outside-in basketball club.
Still scoreless. 100 seconds in. Robinson thought about a shot, and he will be called for a travel. And usually that's what Rhodey does on the other side, turn you over.
Doughton had the layup. I mean, he takes it right down the middle, and you see Joe Dooley. He loves to play man-to-man and force the pass out. Stop the paint, Will. Make them pass the ball out. Don't get beat in the paint.
One of the stories in this ball game, Mark, is that both teams, that Stan Robinson sprints into the locker room. Early substitution. He is out of the ball game as Dan Hurley has to make an early change. Nicola Kelly onto the floor. We'll watch that one. An early development with Robinson into the locker room. The glue guy for this team not out there. Offense hard to come by. Both these teams so stout defensively. Florida Gulf Coast has really scored the basketball this year, and there is the first points of the night. An unlikely three from Rayshon Scott. Matthews wheeling and dealing down the lane. There he bails it out. Three ball. Matthews ties it up.
I really enjoyed watching E.C. Matthews practice yesterday, Will. He just does everything at the right speed. The game is not going too fast for him. He can knock down the three, and he can play D as well.
And there is that turnover. Rhode Island leads the conference in turnover margin, turnovers and steals. Barry with the right hand.
It was a good example of his hands. That was not a great pass by Doughton. He scooped it right in there and finished off the glass.
For guard-heavy teams, Mark, a little bit of a frenetic start to this one.
But they don't pressure. They don't extend the defense 94 feet. We asked both coaches at shoot-around. They refuse to extend the pressure, rather just hunker down in the quarter defense and get into passing lanes.
Mr. Carlisle missed a couple games with concussion, and this is the man that makes it go for Florida Gulf Coast. Brandon Goodwin, little jump stop, jumper no. There is Terrell, his second board of the game. Down the lane. What a finish for Jared Terrell.
Nice little Euro step. We saw in the open with those highlights. He loves to have the ball in his hand. Straight line drive to the rim. That's what he prefers.
Well, getting the fans at the Ryan Center into it. 7 straight for Rhode Island. Trying to feed the post. Simmons with the left, and he is fouled by Barry.
Well, we take a look. Here he is, JT, the Euro step through 3-4 guys. Carlisle trying to block it on the way in. Well, when you go to the rim, you go straight line drive. Let somebody get you off. Do not veer off, and that's what Gerald Terrell does better than anyone.
Simmons is 64% free throw shooter, too strong to the first. Mark, if there's anyone on this Rhode Island team that can get you a bucket when you have to have it down the lane, it is Terrell. He has done that particularly late in games so often this year.
And E.C. Matthews. Now, let's not forget, folks, last year when they won the A-10, E.C. Matthews was the leading scorer. When he came off the ACL injury the year before that, sat on the bench with the coaches and learned the game at a different level, came back, led the Rams in scoring, and then broke his wrist in the second game of the season. So he's still getting back. You put those two guys together for this URI team, they're as good as any backcourt in the country.
He's eased back in off the bench the previous two against Charleston and Iona, but Dan Hurley figured tonight's the night. We got to get Matthews back into the starting lineup. He's already made a three. You're looking for Barry in the corner. Under 10 to shoot, wild off the backboard, and Florida Gulf Coast with Carlisle comes away. Zach Johnson had an enormous first half against Wichita State. His backcourt mate, Goodwin, down the lane with a right hand, pulls the Eagles within one.
First time, really, that Brandon Goodwin got the ball in his hands and took advantage of it.
Transition free for Terrell.
How about the pass from Dowden? Just recognizing where everybody is on the court in rhythm. Terrell goes up and knocks down his second three.
He has had some slow starts, says Terrell. It's been the second half where he's made his money, but 5 early for Terrell. Down the lane, there is Doyle, and one off the bench. He's oft injured, and Doyle will have a chance.
I was talking to Joe Dooley's AD today at shoot-around, Ken Kavanaugh, and what he wanted in that new coaching position following that unbelievable Dunk City run was somebody that understood what a winning program was all about. 10 years for Bill Self as an assistant at Kansas and Fogg Allen Fieldhouse. That is why Joe Dooley is on the sidelines.
He absorbed a lot in that time. In Lawrence, Jeff Doughton leading the charge offensively for Rhode Island. He has assisted on 3 of their 4 buckets. He is the leading assist to turnover man in the conference, 5th best in the country. Terrell has been on fire early. Kelly. First look on the far side at Jarvis Garrett, who was removed from the starting lineup. Doughton cannot find the finish down the lane, and there, for the first time, is Michael Gilmore off the FGCU bench.
I am really happy you have a play-by-play book here with 27 names because, folks, it's a rotating dial out there. It's a revolving door. The 9th guy for Florida Gulf Coast is already playing, and he happens to be Artis Gilmore's nephew. And a very long body at 6'9". He can knock down the 3. He gets on the glass. He alters shots, and he's the 4th substitution of today's game.
When Artis is your uncle, you got some pedigree. He started his career at VCU, then briefly Miami, and now to Florida Gulf Coast. That's part of the deal for the Eagles. They are welcoming of transfers. They go everywhere and anywhere to find players. Good for Rhode Island. Stan Robinson back out of the locker room. So quick fix for him. Under 15, holding the 1-point lead. Terrell, too strong, and there is Robinson, and he makes a tremendous effort to keep it in the hands of Rhode Island. What a save and a throw off the legs of Florida Gulf Coast. Robinson is the do-it-all.
Yeah, he's the glue of the team, Will. Watching game tape before we got here tonight, against Alabama especially, where they played better, superior athletes at every position, he out-rebounded, out-defended, outshot, out-got to the 50-50 balls, everybody. That's what he does. A great example right there on the offensive glass.
Dan Hurley called him their MVP so far this year. Up top, Doughton. Good man-to-man feed by Christian Terrell.
Yeah, great closeout because Doughton can go left and right off the dribble.
With a right hand, Robinson offhand, and that is good.
Right on cue, using that offhand, getting into the gaps.
Trying for one in transition, and that is the kind of turnover that will drive Joe Dooley nuts, Mark. Rhode Island makes it hard enough as it is. That is just giving the ball away.
It's not a live ball turnover, or folks, that's like a pick 6 in football where you make that bad pass at half court, they come right down and score 2. So you didn't give up 2, but you never gave yourself an opportunity to get a possession because Ricky Doyle, at 6'10", 235, is not a wide receiver going down to catch an out pattern. Let him run down and set up. Don't lead him for the layup.
Particularly given the fact that he's had all kinds of injuries this season. Fats Russell onto the floor for the first time. Talk about a dynamic young scorer. So is Cyril Langevin, and he is fouled on his way up. An energy man in the front court off the bench. Langevin will shoot a couple.
You know, Danny Hurley prides himself on his defense. What this URI team does is force turnovers, as you can see, top ranked in per game and turnovers margin. But the reason why they do is they are a cohesive unit. Defense is all about communication and rotation. We have seen 7, 8 substitutions for each team in the first 6 minutes of the game, Will. That's hard to get into a rhythm communicating. So turnovers are the result.
Cyril Langevin is maybe the most natural talented front court player for URI. He was spectacular against the College of Charleston. He fuses this club with athleticism, a rangy spirit. The defensive ferocity you're talking about, Mark, that is not hard to figure for Dan Hurley as Langevin misses them both. His pedigree, both with his father, Bob Sr., and P.J. Carlissimo at Seton Hall, that is the ethos of Hurley basketball. Intensity on the defensive side.
Ethos. See, what, folks, when you work with a guy from Stanford University, you've got to get your dictionary.
Doyle lays it in with the right.
That is the absolute meaning of defense, and URI fell asleep on the pick and roll. Great job by Doyle rolling and converting the layup.
I wanted to make that one a little easier. No dictionary required there. 1 point ball game. Garrett, the senior. Russell all the way around into the corner for Robinson. No good. On the rebound to Christian Terrell.
Much better job by Terrell letting the big guy set up instead of leading him.
There is Gilmore, but he cannot find the touch.
A little quick, Will. He doesn't have to be that quick. He's got superior length from the URI Rams front court. Just go up strong. Take your time.
What vision from Russell. Langevin cannot finish, but Brody will keep the basketball. And Mark, that is something that Fats Russell has done a lot of. This one too easy on the other end.
Great pick and roll and a pass on the second catch. Nobody picked up Doyle initially, and he went right to the front of the rim.
He's a transfer from Michigan. He started 67 of his 68 games in Ann Arbor, so he's another piece that Dooley has brought on to Florida Gulf Coast. They are waiting for him to fully assimilate. And that was a good bucket from him. Here's Matthews short with a three, and how about Goodwin going up top for the rebound? Quickly into the front court, and he cannot finish. Perhaps looking for too much. Back and forth, Matthews will go to the line.
Excellent example on both ends there. Well, University of Rhode Island Rams did not create the contact against Goodwin. They just stayed in front of him, kept retreating, and made Goodwin take a difficult layup. He missed it. On the way down this way, Matthews takes it right into Florida Gulf Coast, into Gilmore. Gilmore tries to block the shot, and the body contact sends him to the foul line. Great job by Matthews.
The better free throw shooters on Rhode Island's club, but he misses the first. And, you know, Mark, I thought it was really interesting that Dan Hurley felt like tonight was the night to get E.C. Matthews, the finale before Atlantic 10 play begins on Saturday. George Mason comes to town. He knows that if his club is going to accomplish what he wants them to, Matthews has got to be a big part of it.
And it's hard getting back into the timing. You're going to have rust when you come off an injury and miss 4 or 5 weeks. But he missed the first 5 weeks of the season, Will, with a knee issue, not his ACL knee from 2 years ago, but a smaller knee issue. So he didn't really start practicing until this week.
Easy bucket on the inside for Antravius Simmons, and they are making inroads in the paint.
Too easy. And Florida Gulf Coast loves to get into the paint, but you have to do your homework early. Do not let Simmons get on that first block. Push him up the lane.
Hunter Berry already at the scorer's table. Dan Hurley knows he needs a little bit more beef in the middle. Robinson with the left. That will not fall. Florida Gulf Coast in a tie ball game. They've found perhaps the soft underbelly of the URID.
And I like Christian Terrell. Ever since he got into the game, Will, he's been a calming influence and let Simmons and Johnson do their scoring. He's been really the one dishing out the assists.
Here's Terrell. Simmons once again.
Nice.
Terrell Mercurius. Terrell, the lefty three. Inside and out.
Well, he's a great three-point shooter, 54% of the season. But he's also used to dishing out the rock because in high school he played with this young man named Grayson Allen. And, you know, he had a lot of assists in high school throwing the ball to Grayson.
What is it with the southpaws from downtown? Stan Robinson knocks it at 16.
Robinson shot almost every time down the court. He's not lacking confidence whatsoever.
He's opened up offensively for both these clubs as Fats Russell gets his hand on the ball. And that will send us to a break. Well, Florida Gulf Coast have one last look, perhaps, inside the Alamo Dome.
Well, if he plays, you know, you guys from Stanford, you don't always play in those bowl games now, Will. You know what I'm saying?
Something of a trendsetter was Christian McCaffrey a year ago as Stan Robinson has a steal down the lane, and it falls. A guy who averages 3 steals a game gets one and makes it count on the other end.
Just quietly does what you need to do to win the games. As Coach Dan Hurley says, he makes winning plays on both ends of the court.
He's got 7 early. Good went onto the board. Knifing down the lane. Hurley brings Doughton back out onto the floor with Matthews, Robinson, Russell, and the big man in the middle, Andre Berry.
Nice pass.
Berry cannot find the range, and the rebound into the hands of Rayshon Scott, who got the start for Joe Dooley.
And Rayshon Scott also was the guy that rotated over on that high ball screen and got in the middle and broke it up. Great job.
He's active early as Scott. And down the lane with a right.
He's active early. He's active late. He's high energy. It's what he does. He brings a level to his team. Everyone rises to that energy level.
He's got 5, and Doughton is fouled just in front of the Florida Gulf Coast bench. Andre Berry's an interesting story. We saw him miss the shot get deep from Scott, and a guy, Mark, in his last year has lost 70 to 80 pounds. Dan Hurley brought him into the office in the offseason. He said, look, you got a choice to make. Can you commit to your body, to your conditioning? If so, you're going to be a big part of our program next year. He did, and he has been.
And Coach Hurley was incredibly honest with it. He said, you know what, or you can go to a lower level D1 program, probably score 16 and have 9 rebounds a game and, you know, be personally successful. And Berry chose to show up twice a day in the summer and lose 70-plus pounds. I asked him how he did it, and he gave us a great work ethic answer. And, you know, I thought it was just by, you know, Bud Lights instead of Bud Heavies is what I asked him. And he kind of smiled and said, not that at all, Mark.
Yeah, Kingston Pizza's closed. There's Berry. Earns a slice with a right hand off the glass.
He has great footwork. You know, so his conditioning is getting to about 80%, but without the 300-plus pounds, now he's moving quicker laterally, and his hands are like a 6'6", 200-pound guy. Put the combination together, you get that layup.
10 of Florida Gulf Coast 20 points have come in the paint. Here's Zach Johnson on a big game at Wichita State. He is fouled on the floor by Stan Robinson. Mark, that was a game in Wichita that Florida Gulf Coast was in. That was a 1-possession game with 2 minutes to go. Things kind of got away from the Eagles down the stretch. Maybe some questionable calls that went against Florida Gulf Coast. But that, I think, against one of the top 5 teams in the country, tells you what you need to know about the talent level of these Eagles.
They're big. They're deep. Took a good look at Zach Johnson there, 5 for 7 from behind the arc against Wichita State. They were in their tie ball game at the 4-minute mark. And Wichita State is loaded with talent. Hey, folks, so isn't Florida Gulf Coast.
These are 2 teams picked to win their leagues, expected to be in the tournament come March. Scott with a nice turnaround.
Great footwork. Did not rush the shot at all, Will. Took his time, got on balance, and a great finish.
You'd have to say that Joe Dooley played a beautiful card in this first half. He gave Scott a start. He's got 7 early.
I think both coaches have done an excellent job getting everybody in the game in this holiday week. At times it can be hard for the players. There's not a routine. There's no class. There's no hour-and-a-half practice. And so get everybody sweating, get everyone into the game, and then figure out who's got real rhythm and play that 5.
Terrell ties it up at 22. Going to the fort, Christian Carlisle. Really emphasizing the low post. 7 to shoot. Goodwin working on Doughton. Great on-ball defender. He loses his footing. Scott, far side three, too strong. And Doughton there for the board.
Keep that possession on how to play high ball screen defense. Great job by URI. And a great closeout, as you mentioned, partner, by Doughton on that three-point shot.
Doughton, three ball. Good!
That's the one knock on this super soft, is that at times his three-point perimeter shot is not good enough to play at the next level because it's more of a set shot. Everything else, right on game.
Back cut, and Carlisle misses everything. Another try, too strong, and Matthews comes away. Terrell. Handoff. Matthews. Three ball. No. And Matthews to the floor, and he's going to be fouled by Rayshon Scott. Hustle for Matthews. Back into the...
Florida Gulf Coast is a one-and-done Atlantic Sun League, where if you win your conference tournament, you're going. If you have a 2-25 record, you're still going to get to that NCAA dance. The mindset for Danny Hurley is, I want an at-large bid. If I win the A-10 tournament, great, but I want an at-large bid, and that's why the schedule is as tough as it's been early on in the season.
Both teams heavy favorites to win their leagues in the preseason. Doughton with 15 to shoot. Little step back, Jay. No, and Florida Gulf Coast, and a foul going to be called on Goodwin. Doughton will go to the line. Maybe they'll keep it on the floor, maybe after the shot went up.
I think that was the call, so that got him with his foot. At times, that's the Reggie Miller offensive call, where you stick your foot out to try to draw the foul. I guess it works both ways. There's no tripping allowed in college basketball. Well, you know that.
That set shot you were talking about has not worked at the free throw line. He's 59% for the year, and it looked it there.
Very athletic. When he gets off the bounce and pulls up from 15 feet, Will, he's really a solid shooter and scorer. From the foul line and the set shot from the three-point line, I think he just thinks about it more. It's not as natural as when he's in the air using his athleticism.
And you think he could really elevate himself if he put the time in and figured out how to become a true jump shooter?
I do, but it's so hard to change from a semi-set shot to an athletic jump shot because you have to go months of not shooting the ball well, and no one wants to do that in college basketball.
There is Johnson, secure down the middle of the lane. A lot of bricks before you can build the temple, perhaps.
I don't know why you keep looking at me when you say bricks, but that's fine. Whatever.
Saw your shooting percentage your first couple of years at Villanova. Here is Kelly, and that's going to be basket interference. Into the cylinder was Cyril Langevin.
Yeah, Zach Johnson has no problem using that big athletic body, getting up against the defense. Here you can see him working against Garrett. What a great split of the double team. And then rather than take it to the rim, recognize what you have, Will, and pull up for that 14-footer, knocking it down.
Most people really expect that Florida Gulf Coast to have a relatively easy time in the Atlantic Sun. Lipscomb, their closest competitor in that league. Meanwhile, Rhode Island, class of the A-10, St. Bonaventure, picked to finish second. And we will have them right here on January 13th on ESPNU. Lob pass over the top, and that is a strong finish for Brady Ernst, who had Cyril Langevin in the midsection.
Yeah, the sophomore Brady Ernst, 6'10", getting more and more minutes. Another long athlete for Joe Dooley. I mean, these guys just keep coming.
Joe raved about his improvement. Ernst, they do have a lot of bodies, and most of them have played tonight. Corner three, Kelly, that will not go, but there is Langevin. Doyle gets a hand on it. Doughton, free throw line, and they'll reset, will the Rams. Doughton, set shot three, not close, and there is Terrell with the board.
Yeah, that's the variety when you have that set shot.
And at Gulf Coast, pushing the basketball quickly into the front court. Goodwin sailing to the rim, and he is fouled. He'll have a pair at the line.
Really impressed with Christian Terrell pushing the ball and finding the right guy. You take a look at him right here with that pass across the court, just recognizing the mismatch, the height advantage that Brady Ernst had, and then the possession after that on the break, knowing that Goodwin is lying down the left side and making sure he gets the ball, Will, by the three-point line, not close to the basket. Give somebody with the athleticism of Goodwin a chance to create in space, and that's how he drew the foul.
You know, Mark, in the half-court set, it seems like Florida Gulf Coast making a concerted effort to lob it over the top to the big men down on the baseline. It makes them both. That has been a big look for Joe Dooley's club.
They're always up in the NCAA leaders in points in paint the last 3 years. So that's an initiative and a point of emphasis, because you know what, Will? Big guys look really good in the paint. Not so good up and down in transition, but they look really good in the paint. So feed it to them.
A dying breed, but Florida Gulf Coast has a couple of them. Here's Fats Russell. 3 ball, no. And Terrell, dangerous collision beneath the waist, and he is spilled. And that would be a foul on the Eagles. Friday on ESPN, Bowl Mania continues with 2 more games at 1 Eastern. It's the Belk Bowl. Wake Forest Demon Deacons, Texas A&M. Jim Fisher in the fold. And then at 4:30, Kentucky battles number 21 Northwestern in the Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl. Woo! Got through that one. Couple of bowl games on Friday. Both games available on the ESPN app. Rhode Island trailing by 2. Terrell has been excellent at the free throw line this year. He's got 8 at the 4:18 mark of the opening half. I think to this point, Mark, this one's kind of played according to script. Florida Gulf Coast has hammered the post and had a lot of success doing it. Meantime, Rhode Island, the guards have led the way.
It's not necessarily points in paint difference, low post layups, because that's exactly what we've seen. It's just, to your point, Will, a direction from the coaching staff. Get the ball down low.
Backdoor cut. Terrell, good.
That was a set plan, and Goodwin's giving Terrell a high five, because Ricky Doyle was supposed to do that backdoor bounce pass. But how about the hands of the big fella Doyle? One thing knowing the plays there, it's a whole second thing about executing.
Fats Russell has the fans here at Rhode Island all a Twitter. He had 20 against Providence. He is an electrifying talent, and Dan Hurley thinks that Fats Russell is going to lead this conference in scoring in the not too distant future. Terrell not close with a 3. And here comes Florida Gulf Coast.
Terrell shot that one downwind. A little too much club there, Will, huh? It was like 3 feet over the rim. Fired up to shoot that one.
Just an easy 7-iron from you, I'm sure. Goodwin into the post, and Langevin just cannot hang right now with Ricky Doyle. They are pounding the post.
3 from Stan Robinson, senior. Jared Terrell, 1 for 4. The good news is, it's again, like a good golfer, very short memory. They're going to be firing it up again when they get down the offensive end of the court.
No memory, as that's too easy off the inbound. Goodwin would go back to the free throw line. Wait a minute. Confidence is a bad thing?
It's the only thing when you're shooting. Next one is going in.
You know, it is interesting, Mark, sort of a challenge for Dan Hurley. A lot of mouths to feed, especially with the young guys, Doughton and Russell, trying to find minutes. I think he came into this season thinking, if I can get these guys all somewhere between 25 and 30 minutes a game, that would be perfect. It has not been that easy to do so, particularly now that Matthews is back carrying a heavier load.
It's not easy, because where do you draw the line? I mean, you folks, you should see Danny Hurley's practices. It is all-out warfare. The games are the fun part. And then in practice, if you're going all out, how do you not reward one of those 6 guards playing time?
Matthews misses. Langevin cannot find it with a putback. And Rhode Island comes empty on a couple. Florida Gulf Coast with its largest lead of the night. Feels like Goodwin's starting to get in rhythm.
Boy, he just has scored every time Florida Gulf Coast needs a bucket. Absolute go-to guy. Lightning speed. Loves to get into the gaps.
He is an interesting story, Goodwin. Has had sort of a checkered past. Expelled from high school, had to leave UCF. That was too strong in the corner from Mercurius. Rhode Island trying to cut into this lead. Goodwin has emerged as by far the best player on this team and in the Atlantic Sun. Another miss from downtown from Garrett. But Rhode Island will have the basketball underneath their bucket.
You know, it's clear that Joe Dooley has said, you know what, let's see if they can knock down the threes. Because when they get in the paint, they're very good at taking the ball to the rim and getting to the foul line. It's working. The one pass shot is open, and as a player, as a shooter, Will, it's hard to not take that shot. So Joe Dooley's pregame plan is working.
Rhode Island was hot early from 3. They've missed 5 in a row, but Robinson Matthews knocks it down, and Rhode Island back within 1.
Well, like I said, E.C. Matthews has been around, another one of these seniors. He has no problem hoisting it up.
There is Goodwin, and he is starting to feel it.
Again, I mentioned E.C. Matthews was the leading scorer last year for this A-10 championship team. What a good back screen by Berry. And there you can see they want you to take the 3. They're challenging you to take the 3. So E.C. says, what? Okay, I'm going to knock this down.
And that's part of his pedigree, isn't it, Mark? And that's the reason that Dan Hurley knows that he's got to get Matthews fully integrated into this team. He can do so many things. Along with Terrell, if you've got that pure scorer out there, just a much more dynamic offense. 1 point, Florida Gulf Coast lead under 2 minutes. Matthews starting to find it a little bit. Looks like he's asking for the basketball. Left and right, Doughton down the lane. Matthews. 3 ball. Good! You just had the feeling, and Dan Hurley loves it. Signed a contract extension, was rumored to be heavily involved in the mix for that Georgetown opening that went to Patrick Ewing. But he doesn't lose the intensity, but he does feel to me, Mark, like he has found a little bit more peace here in Kingston.
Well, he is a family man first and foremost. The passion that he has for basketball started back playing for his dad at St. Anthony High School in Jersey City.
Turnover from Terrell, and again, that is just a giveaway on miscommunication.
There's a great picture. The legendary Bob Hurley Sr. on the right with the hat. Folks, over 1,000 wins for St. Anthony's. And are you sitting down? Is everyone sitting down? 28 high school state championship titles. I mean, come on now. Maybe Morgan, maybe, as far as the top 2 high school coaches of all time.
And both his boys are doing just fine. Dan at Rhode Island. Bobby's got one of the top 5 teams in the country at Arizona State as Matthews is starting to take this game over. He'll shoot a couple of free throws, but Bob Hurley, St. Anthony was shut down due to lack of funding a year ago. Dan launched a great initiative where he brought all the alumni back. They had one last session in the gym. The former greats came back, and Dan said, I just don't care whether they lock us into the gym. I'm strapping the shoes on one more time for Dad. He's my favorite coach. He's my hero, my mentor. And they made something pretty bitter into something sweet with the closing of that great program.
A big part of it here at URI is this Ryan Center. What a great place to have as your on-campus home gymnasium. That's where the coaches' offices are, right up behind us upstairs. When the stands are not all out, you've got 8 baskets in here to shoot whenever you want. I mean, that is outstanding. And that's part of the work ethic and the passion that the Hurley family brings to college basketball.
That's E.C. Matthews' show right now. He's got 12, and Rhode Island leads by 4. Under a minute to go at this beautiful Ryan Center. They have invested. Dan Hurley has worked hard to improve the facilities, and he's had a cooperative partner. Another turnover. Those are starting to pile up for the Eagles. College football playoff, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific on ESPN and the ESPN app. Darnold and Rosen right there at the top of most mock drafts. One last look at Sam against the Buckeyes in the Cotton Bowl.
I like that timeout by Danny Hurley, too, taking advantage of the 30-second diagram of play. Everyone knows what we're doing. Now it's just execution time.
E.C. Matthews with 8 to shoot. Down the lane, Berry. Teardrop goes.
And that spacing, Will, for the URI Rams in that possession was elite. That allowed that high ball screen and an easy 8-footer by Berry.
7 seconds to go. Largest lead of the night for Rhode Island. There's Terrell. Great defense, Russell. Good if it goes. Too strong, but Rhode Island on a surge to end the first half. Our score at the half, 38-30. Assertive in that first half, trying to take over that superstar role once again. Florida Gulf Coast with the basketball to begin the second half. Rhodey finished it on a 10-0 run. I thought Ricky Doyle was big time for them in the first half. Here he goes to work on Barry, but now back up top to Terrell.
Well, turnovers again, always a big key for Florida Gulf Coast.
Offensive foul on Rayshon Scott. That's his third foul right out of the gates in half number 2. You know, Mark, that's the point that Joe Dooley made to us. He said, look, we shoot the ball well. We score on basically half our possession. That is why he tries so emphatically to limit turnovers. They gave it away 7 times in the opening half. They score when they can just hold on to the basketball.
And on the flip side, URI, 13 hoops, 10 assists. So they're doing an excellent job, the guys in the white unis, of moving the ball and finding that open man.
Stan Robinson gave him a lift early. Now into the post to Barry. He's got a wide range of moves. Step back jumper will not fall. And Doyle corrals the rebound. Lobbed over the top. There's Gilmore, who does start the second half. Barry rejects him. Eagles will reset.
Well, Gilmore gets up and down the court with great speed. He's going to learn how to finish.
There it is again. Too easy for Doyle.
Way too easy. Barry trying to help out on that simple cross screen in the paint and got stuck on the screener. And, you know, look, Ricky Doyle knows how to play the game, folks. He started 30 games in the Big Ten for Michigan. It's no surprise he finds that open space.
He's really given them a lift and trying to manage his minutes. He's been beleaguered with injury, but he has really been good here tonight. To the corner, Stan Robinson, 3 ball. There it is. Just like the opening stanza, and here come the Eagles again. Wild down the lane. Gilmore cleans up Terrell's miss.
You know, in the A-Sun, up and down, you can get away with missing shots or bad passes because your athleticism will come in on the offensive glass. Against URI, you can't just throw the ball up and expect that defense to not get back. They do a great job in transition.
Terrell cannot find it. Barry, second chance. That one goes. Work on the offensive glass, and it seems to me, Mark, that a real point of emphasis in the locker room for Florida Gulf Coast, they want to push it here in the second half.
Well, I think that's their only way to get Goodwin involved. I mean, he had an excellent first half. I mean, he scored 8 points, but he didn't get the ball enough. He needs more touches.
Here's Gilmore, who is going to be called for steps. Good defense on the backside. Stan Robinson is one of their best, if not their best, on-ball defenders.
Wow, you look at Barry on that weak side, just 3 guys around him using that big body, knowing that the shot most likely will come off on that weak side. 72% of the time, Will Fleming, the ball will come off on the opposite side of the rim, and that's exactly where Barry positioned himself to get that offensive rebound.
Good read by him. He told us he feels so much looser, lighter on his feet without the extra weight. Largest lead of the night for Rhode Island, a 7-point edge. Doughton. For a young guy, he is so steady on ball. Robinson for back-to-back threes. A little bit strong. Good play by Barry. Matthews off the window. And Joe Dooley has seen enough. Matthews looks healthy, and he is flying around here tonight.
He adds just a bigger body for that backcourt. I mean, with a man of his size, 6'3", 210 pounds, guys like Terrell and Johnson now for Florida Gulf Coast aren't used to playing against bigger bodies, and they have to play defense, so their offense is lacking this
evening. He was so big, getting them to that NCAA tournament, the MVP of the postseason tourney in the A-10, as that's a big bucket for Zach Johnson to break the run for Rhode Island. And Mark, you better hope that E.C. Matthews keeps playing so well. You want him on the floor. He's coming for your job. He wants to broadcast when he's done.
Yeah, how about that? Well, he's going to get my job, obviously. I told him he can come at halftime if he's having a good game. Maybe that's why he's playing so well.
Inspired. Here is a miss from Barry. On the Gulf Coast. Much more assertive and quick into the front court in this second stanza. Another lob over the top, looking for Ernst, and there is yet another turnover, number 10 for the Eagles.
That one actually is credited to Terrell. He had great ball pressure on the Florida Gulf Coast ball handler, so he couldn't see that lob pass. It was wide open, but he couldn't make the pass because of the excellent ball pressure on the perimeter.
7-point Rhode Island lead. Terrell has been reasonably quiet after opening the game ablaze. He's fouled. He will not have a chance at a 3-point play, but work on freebies coming for Terrell.
Well, Terrell's been quiet, but he's averaging 18, and he is the guy that Danny Hurley is never worried about in the moment of the big game, in the big moment to score. But with E.C. Matthews taking some of that load off him, now the young guys, Fats and Doughton, can get in there and learn during the game. So come March, they're going to be lethal.
How about one of the big days on the entire sports calendar? New Year's Day, we'll have the college football playoff semifinals on ESPN. Number 2, Oklahoma, and number 3, Georgia kick things off in the Rose Bowl game at 5 p.m. Eastern. From Pasadena, then it's number 1, Clemson, and number 4, Alabama in the Sugar Bowl from the Superdome in New Orleans. Both games stream live on the ESPN app. How's that for a New Year's Day slate?
What's your call, partner? Who do you have playing the following Monday?
I got Clemson and Georgia in the final.
Nice. Kind of stinks because that's who I have.
Another turnover, and here comes Matthews. He is fouled on the sideline. Ernst, and I think that's a smart foul right there. He was off to the races. They really have stayed within themselves. They will inbound just under 16 in half number 2. Rhode Island in front by 9, protecting the basketball and disrupting on the other end. Pretty good formula. It has worked thus far for the Rams. Robinson with the left. And that is the biggest lead into double figures for the Rams. Some contact, and I think that is one of the stories of this game so far. Zach Johnson, who is one of the leaders of this team, has really not been a factor offensively.
And you got to credit Terrell and E.C. Matthews for their big defensive effort by those 2 big guards for URI.
Jerome Mercurius has played a limited role in this game, as has Antravius Simmons, who cannot find the touch. And here comes Rhode Island. Doughton looks to push. And now pull it out for Terrell. And now into the paint. Barry. Hook shot, no. Ernst with a board.
Everything but to finish. Excellent entry pass. And a good little jump hook.
Mark, it felt like when Florida Gulf Coast was making inroads offensively, it was on the interior, and here they go again. Simmons going to work on Barry. Drop step with the left.
It doesn't get any easier than that, and you're right, Will. That's how they built that lead and sustained that first half down low in the paint. Instead of trying to do too much, just dump it down low. That time URI did not double team. They covered the outlet pass and a good one-on-one move.
I think they have been a much better team with Ricky Doyle on the floor. He is at the scorer's table right now. Again, the injuries, he has had to limit his minutes. Barry off the window.
Jared Terrell just plays at such a smooth pace. I mean, you need the camera to check even if he's sweating out there, though. I mean, this guy just never misses a beat.
He almost came away with that one. And an open 3 for Mercurius. He is deadly from there, but not good this time. Tracks down his own board. Too strong. Simmons, third time a charm for Florida Gulf Coast.
Simmons throwing that big body around, and Ricky Doyle waiting to get in with fresh legs. That's how Florida Gulf Coast will get back into this game. 2 at a time in the paint.
They're trying to just hang around in this one, maybe until Doyle can come back within shouting distance. Terrell fouled. Shot will not fall, and here comes some reinforcements for Joe Dooley.
Take a look at Doughton coming off that high ball screen. Terrell looks like he's just going to pull up for the 15-footer, and Barry makes space and calls for the ball with his hands. Doesn't yell out, "Hey, JT, give me the ball!" With his hands, shows his hands. You have to make the pass, and an easy left converting the lane.
How he is as cool as a cucumber, Terrell. And I think, Mark, when you look at the resume for Rhode Island thus far, 7-3, they've got all these top 30 RPI wins, and many of them have come down to the wire, and it's been Terrell making big shots, and it is that composure, the senior leadership. He and Matthews just stay flatlined at the end of games.
We haven't even seen the freshman sensation, Fats Russell. He's going to get better and better by January, February, March. And I really like Jeff Doughton. I think he could be as good as any point guard in the A-10 when it's all said and done.
Travis Garrett has not played a lot in this game. His minutes diminished with the return of Matthews. He's out there now guarding Johnson. Doughton on Goodwin. Trying to go to work. Little jump stop and more tremendous on-ball D from Doughton. Doyle back into the game. An immediate chance. No. And Langevine with a board. Garrett, he's a dead-eye shooter from downtown, shooting 50% from the floor and 12 of 26 from three, but he has not had many looks here tonight. It's back to get the basketball. Little zone look for Florida Gulf Coast.
Yep, definitely just trying to keep the bigs because they're outmatched playing the guards against URI.
Terrell, no, and a foul over the back on Cyril Langevin, and he cannot believe that call. Well, that's the idea, Mark. They figured that Florida Gulf Coast would play 4 or 5 minutes of zone in this ballgame. They do there. Terrell has a good look. He just doesn't get the touch.
And often against a 2-3 zone, you can get to the offensive glass. Langevin doing excellent effort there. But look, sometimes you just don't go over the back. You can always get another possession, Will. You can't get more than 5 fouls, folks. That'll get you right back to the bench.
Goodwin trying to get involved. That is a wild shot. He does come up with a board, and now Johnson, 3 ball, way off, and a foul on the floor going to be called, I believe, on Stan Robinson. So that's 2 in a row on rebounds that Brody called for fouls. And that does not look like the normal Zach Johnson on that deep 3.
I was just going to say, he just out of rhythm, forcing the game, and when you get down, you're looking at it's 11-point game. At times, you try to get it all back in one shot, and you force the issue. That would have been an excellent time for Johnson to show the ball and take it to the rim, get to the foul line, and get everyone to take a deep breath.
11-point URI lead with the basketball. Terrell, Langevin, a lot of contact and one. Perhaps in the restricted area there for Gilmore, and Langevin with a chance for a 3-point play.
Well, you better know how to defend the high ball screen, and that's the second time that Terrell has delivered the pass to the paint with excellent precision.
Third foul on Gilmore. It's really interesting. I think, Mark, one of the themes of this game has been the guys who are in rhythm, who've been involved early, have really contributed, whereas those who have not, like Gilmore and Johnson, have struggled. And here is the smallest player in Division I basketball, Darnell Rogers, 5'2". He is a spark plug. Really a good pure scorer when he's got the room to do damage. And here is a foul going to be called on Langevin. No, a kickball, and they'll reset the shot. Providence and Dan. Of course, the Seton Hall point guard, 91-96, spanned a couple of coaches, P.J. Carlissimo in the early stages of his career, and then George Blaney, the man to whom he gives the credit for literally keeping him in the sport of basketball. He says no shot he'd be here today were it not for George Blaney, who convinced him to come back to that Seton Hall team, and here he is. It looks like he's got a really dangerous club.
Yeah, he was very honest with us today at shoot-around. He was struggling with being Bobby Hurley's brother when Bobby was doing everything he was doing at Duke, because together in high school they were the same player, and then Bobby Hurley's career, of course, just launched, became an outstanding college basketball player and then an NBA player, and then it was the car accident that Bobby Hurley got into that allowed his brother Danny to take a year off to go be with him for his recovery, and it was George Blaney that said, I need you, and he scored 1,000 points with Terry DeHare in the backcourt. That's not easy, because Terry took a lot of shots.
That's it. I had sort of a yellow to red light in that backcourt as Matthews misses the jumper. And how about that? A rebound for the 5'2" Darnell Rogers. Foul going to be called on the post on Langevin. You alluded to that car accident December of Bobby Hurley's rookie year in the NBA. He was a first-round pick of the Sacramento Kings. And of course, extra meaning for Dan Hurley last year. Their tournament run took place in Sacramento, and Coach Hurley said it was so emotional for him. The team landed at the Sacramento airport, and all he could remember was sitting in that hospital room with his brother, holding on for dear life.
He really credits that period of time that got him back to where his head needed to be.
Terrell jumper will not go, and Fats Russell, the little guys, are getting boards here in the last 30 seconds. Garrett, Rogers strips it away. That's just the third Rhode Island turnover. And a chance for the Eagles. Johnson short with a jumper, and Garrett another board. 2-on-1 the other way. Matthews fumbles a little bit, and he is blocked by Gilmore and fouled underneath by Rogers.
E.C. Matthews had that dunk lined up. Welcome back all ready to go. He just took his eye off the ball. You talked about Rogers. At 5'2", folks, you can get a rebound. All you got to do is get in the right place at the right time. But boy, how do you can't put the ball down low. He's 5'2". Just keep it up. Keep it up. He can't reach.
Only place he can get it. He is the son of the former George Washington great Shante Rogers, who was himself 5'5" and the 99 A-10 Player of the Year. You can't help but think about those celebrity games in NBA All-Star Weekend when Kevin Hart is always out there playing MVP. And that's sort of what Darnell Rogers looks like, but he's got serious game.
Oh, he can play, folks. I mean, trust me, do not put the ball down anywhere near him or you're going to lose it. He's got a nice shot. I mean, he deserves to be right here for Florida Gulf Coast. Has a really good game.
Chris Paul's AAU team, and CP3 said, I'll take him anywhere, anytime. Get some minutes here in the second half as this one has started to get a little bit away from Florida Gulf Coast. A 13-point lead and 16 for Matthews. Another turnover. Number 12 for Florida Gulf Coast. It's just driving Dooley nuts.
They're playing in sixth gear, and the car only has 4 gears. You know, they're going to slow it down, make the simple play. You can coach Dooley just as frustrated as can be because you don't need those passes. Where are you going to lead him? You lead him into the corner. Make the simple pass, the simple play.
On the one hand, while Johnson and Goodwin have not been their usual selves, Matthews, exclamation point, he's got 18. That's just too much, ECU.
Well, you know you're back in rhythm when you can split the high ball screen like that, and of course with his athleticism, which we have already talked about, and the high finish, you can't guard it. But look at this, folks. The show by Gilmore, and then whoop, I got to go here. And then Simmons at 6'10" is waiting for the strong dunk, and he just avoids him. And the high off the glass finish. Excellent move on the high ball screen.
4 fouls on Cyril Langevin, who has not gotten himself into the rhythm of this game. How many times this year do you think, Mark, that Fats Russell is going to guard someone shorter than he is?
Once.
He's doing it right now. Rogers into the post. Simmons works on Barry. That's impressive with the right hand.
And that's where they have had success all night long. Dumping it down to the big guy. URI choosing not to double team. Let's see if you can score one-on-one. And Simmons has done just that 3 or 4 times.
Well, Mark, it's been a combination of the turnovers and just going away from that. They have not gone as much to the post, and they've paid a price.
And they've been one-pass turnovers, Will, which are terrible. One-pass shots are bad. One-pass turnovers would just give all coaches gray hairs.
Rogers in Fats Russell's grill. A crossover, step back 3, not close.
I hated playing against little guys. Fats, as you mentioned, isn't used to playing against little guys, but it's irritating.
And that will irritate Dan Hurley there. A foul on the backside on Andre Barry.
Nothing little about Simmons, 6'9", 250. Good job by Rogers with that entry pass. You can see no double team. Nice move in, on balance, and the good little left hook off the glass. Well done. Fundamentally sound.
Garrett out, Doughton back in. So that has been one of the themes of this game. The youngsters in the backcourt, but particularly Doughton, have gotten the lion's share of the minutes. Let's see if Florida Gulf Coast tries to go back into the block.
Maybe a little more Ricky Doyle, as you mentioned earlier. Every time he was in the game and touched the ball, good things happened for Florida Gulf Coast.
Corner 3 is rejected by Doughton.
What a great closer.
Matthews throws it out of bounds, and Dan Hurley does not like that.
That's an understatement, partner.
He wears his emotions on his sleeves, does Coach Hurley. I think, again, after the tournament success last year, he has been able to corral it in this season. One big spike of the ball, and it helps when your club has a 13-point lead. Another foul going to be called on Doughton. A lot of whistles here of late.
Well, that's what happens when you put pressure on your defender and take it to the rim. Not settling for the jump shot is how you can get to the line and create some issues on mismatches, which is what Florida Gulf Coast has done well in the last few minutes.
16 fouls on Rhode Island, so one more, that'll be the bonus.
Florida Gulf Coast was down 13 at Wichita State. Tied it up. I mean, they can go on a run of their own, and I just think this guy has to get going. Goodman, he's been quiet.
Unanimous preseason player of the year in the ASUN is Goodwin. Off balance three, not good, and Johnson has not found the groove in this ballgame.
But again, credit E.C. Matthews in that URI perimeter defense. Excellent closeout. Johnson went up thinking he could just rise up and knock down a three, and there was Matthews' hand right in defense.
Western State, a guy who many thought was kind of a shoot-first guard coming out of high school. 22 assists. He right now, Mark, leads the country in both scoring and assists.
He has that special sauce, without question. What he is doing is not only amazing, it is historic. Here's a trivia question for you. No one's ever done what you just mentioned, lead the country in college basketball in scoring and assists. Only one player, I believe, has ever done it in the NBA. Who would that be?
Well, I think it's sort of fitting on a night where we've got a lot of southpaw guards, if I'm not mistaken. And a local guy.
And we're in New England. The great
Tiny
Archibald.
And speaking of Tiny, here's Darnell Rogers.
Welcome, partner.
15-point Rhode Island lead. Eagles running out of time. And it's got to be Goodwin. Go down the lane. A lot of contact. No good. Stan Robinson. Rhode Island with numbers. Doughton spins in the lane with the left hand off the glass.
That's a little look at why they loved Doughton. Recognized the mismatch against Rogers, took him right to the paint, and then switched to the offhand with the finish. You can't teach that.
He is going to be special. In fact, in a lot of ways, he already is. The composure he shows, gets a hand on that when it's out of bounds. And Rogers is going to go to the bench for Terrell, back off the pine for Joe Dooley. 17-point Rhode Island lead. On ball late in games. Doughton's the man they want to hold the basketball. Simmons has had a really nice second half, going to work on Barry. Sort of nice arsenal of moves. He'll pass out to Johnson. More tremendous on-ball defense.
You called it, partner. URI is so hard to come back against. When they get a lead, they don't give you opportunities to get easy baskets. I mean, how about the post defense, the excellent closeout by Terrell, and then everyone on the defensive glass. I mean, once they get a lead, it's almost impossible to get it back.
Can you imagine the battles that Dan and Bobby Hurley had in their driveway as kids? And I think that Rhode Island has sort of embodied that here tonight. Terrell wide open from the corner.
A lot of weapons. A lot of weapons in that backcourt for URI.
16 for JT. The biggest lead of the night. Of tough opponents out of conference. They played Middle Tennessee. They got a big win at UT Arlington, but then they go to Wichita State and come here to Rhode Island. And who knows, maybe around the holidays, all of those games back to back, maybe a little bit too much.
Well, when you have a beach on campus, you can't wait to get home. They're home for the next 2 weeks, 5 games. And you absolutely nailed it. This is a tough environment, so get me back to Florida, 80 degrees.
They literally do have a beach on campus, and that is a good finish for Rayshon Scott. Trying to sting the tie.
When Rayshon started the game strong, but this athleticism of the tweeners for URI has caught him off guard. That time he just outworked everybody at URI up front and got to the rim for the conventional and won.
You mean they didn't have a beach on campus at Villanova?
We did have a beach. It was called Shan Beach, and it was the grass in front of one of the dormitories. But thank you for reminding me of that.
10 points for Scott. Third foul on Doughton. Now, were you a frequenter of that stretch of grass beach?
Not as frequent as if I was at Fort Myers from the campus of Florida Gulf Coast. I can promise you that.
That is going to be a foul as Matthews trying to go down the paint. That is a point of emphasis in college basketball this year. Particularly on the sides of the lane, freedom of motion continues to be something that officials throughout college basketball really want to emphasize.
Well, not just the officials, but the coaches have to understand that that's what the referees are going to emphasize, because then they can teach it. And URI has done a much better job this evening of keeping themselves in front of the Florida Gulf Coast penetrating players. All you have to do, Will, is keep retreating. As long as you just keep your hands up in the air and don't cause the contact, there are no more fouls going to the rim.
Matthews, if he makes this free throw, which he does, he's got 20, and Rhode Island has a 19-point lead.
How about the full-court pressure? Just 19-point lead, working on it, always trying to keep your team in the energy, the high energy level, keep the substitutions flowing, because this is the fun time, the game time.
Rhode Island has not had a lot of ball games like this as Goodwin lays it in. They have really had to grind out their wins. This is uncharted territory for them. 68-51, and I think maybe as a result, Dan Hurley wants to talk this one over. With the big lead, I'm not sure he was like, let's take this one to the finish line. UCLA decided to extend the suspensions of those two players throughout the remainder of the season. Talent everywhere in college basketball, and Trae Young is the headline.
There's plenty of talent right there in L.A. with Holiday and Thomas Welch. I mean, those guys, after losing a couple of games, great bounce-back victory against Kentucky.
Troughton picks up the dribble, 6 to shoot for Rhode Island. Terrell, teardrop. He's shown it all off tonight.
You know what? He was looking to dish it off to Berry, but realized the shot clock was winding down.
Looked like Goodwin got away with a travel, and the beneficiary in Travius Simmons.
Not enough Goodwin tonight. Credit URI for taking him out of the game. And you're talking about unanimous preseason A-Sun player of the year. He can really get it done, and the Rams knew it. Front page of the scouting report reduced his effectiveness outstandingly.
He's been so dynamic. He's found a home at Florida Gulf Coast. He's starting to get a little NBA buzz, has Goodwin. Robinson up and under, second opportunity. How about that for a putback?
Yeah. Good thing he put it back, because he still may be coming out after that little showboat play.
19-point URI lead. Johnson. Great shot. Scotty is not as comfortable up top. Terrell. Nice crossover, and he lays it in.
Nice job. Under control. That's what has been missing tonight for the guys in the blue uniforms, Will. Do what is simple. Don't try to make that Sports Center play every time down the court. That was just a nice high ball screen, straight line drive.
Doughton is not a guy who's going to do too much. He stays within himself, but his pocket is picked. Johnson off to the races. Look out, he misses the dunk. And that is a microcosm of the night for the Eagles.
That's unfortunately the highlight for the Eagles. That is how the evening has gone. Folks, Zach Johnson can play. He is just having one of those off nights, which a lot of college players can have during this holiday season. You're just not in rhythm. You're not in routine. Man, he is a player.
Trying to cock that one all the way back. And Rhode Island is trying to take the air out of the basketball on this trip. 5 to shoot. Far side Garrett. 3 ball. Good. Missed dunk on one end and a trifecta. And that is just about an exclamation point. 20-point lead. Under 3 to go. Simmons. No good. Terrell with a board.
Terrell has been everywhere. E.C. Matthews has been everywhere. And they got 4 more guards that can also play as well. Great job by the perimeter of the URI Rhode Island Rams.
This has been such a great home court advantage for URI. They protect this home floor as well as anybody in the country. Not lost here since the midway point of last year, and why not with shots like that from Doughton. Fans on their feet. Largest lead of the night, and Dan Hurley is going to empty the bench. Johnson into the post, Simmons, and they're going to call a block into the restricted area for Stan Robinson. And that will take us. Man sitting to my right, Mark Klansky knows plenty about Villanova clubs. Member of the 1985 national champion with Rolly Massimino. Mark, what do you think that is? What, maybe not the sex appeal for Villanova, all the young freshmen elsewhere in the country. Why maybe does Villanova not get the headlines that some of these other clubs do?
You know, it's a great question. Jay Wright has only won more college basketball games in the last 4 years than any coach in the country. And I think it's because he recruits the right kid. Not the best talent of the top 50, but the right kid. And the one and dones, they don't really belong at Villanova. You take a look at Jalen Brunson, who I think is as good as a point guard as anyone. He's going to graduate this year as a junior. I mean, so he can go play in the NBA or he can go be a graduate senior. That's the type of kids that Jay Wright recruits.
Shot on the way for Mike Lassard as Dan Hurley has brought some bench players out. Russell, along with Kelly, has got her first look at Ryan Preston. And here comes Eric Dadico. Two-hand jam will not go. The fans were ready to blow the roof off this place. Dan Hurley does not love them. Looking back down the bench. A 20-point Rhodey lead.
You gotta love the effort, though. I mean, come on. How many opportunities do you have? A breakaway dunk.
Rogers misses with a left. And, of course, a guy like Dadico who has been such a big part of their program and worked his tail off in practice. Why not try to slam it home?
Yeah, I guarantee you Coach Hurley is not that upset.
And there's Fats Russell. He's not playing a huge part in this game, but the talent oozes out of that young kid. I think that he is a special talent. He dominated the Peach Jam, did Fats Russell. So coined because he was a little bit oversized as a baby. Not so much anymore, but that kid can play.
Well, the only guard that played better was Trey Young. Fats Russell was 1B in that tournament. That's the elite AAU tournament. And Coach Hurley told us, I can't believe we're going to get Fats to come here and not one Power 5 team is recruiting him.
Against LaSalle and Grand Canyon State, and they are just tickled to death to have him. For Florida Gulf Coast, Mark, I think that this one will just be a blip on the radar. We heard a great anecdote that after they lost in the last 2 minutes at Wichita State, Greg Marshall said to Joe Dooley, how is your club 7-7? You're just so talented. And I think it's a fair question. You'd figure they'll right the ship in the A-Sun.
Wichita State has a bigger front court, which is a better matchup for Florida Gulf Coast. Dan Hurley and URI did an excellent job of playing 4 littles and 1 big. Just not a good matchup if you're not dominating the paint. Florida Gulf Coast early on, when they were tied with tennis after the first 10 minutes in the first half, kept dumping it down low. Once you let these guards go crazy, look out. Tough to match up.
How about that? The greatest start out of conference in 20 years for Rhode Island. They blow Florida Gulf Coast out of the building. 80-60 the final score.